Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 arena neutral cards, excluding legendaries. I want to touch upon the cards that will most likely make the most impact on the arena. So these cards are not only good, but these cards will most likely influence the arena environment. Mainly because they'll get picked a lot, we'll see them a lot, and they do a lot. So let's just jump right into it. So the first card we have here, Robes of Protection. 3 mana, 2/10. So we're going to go through the top 10 cards. So this comes in at number 10. 3 mana, 2/4 minion. Your minions can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. So we all know how annoying it is to not be able to interact with cards. So this ability really protects your boards from removal spells from your opponent. This will probably hurt certain classes more than other classes. So like a class like priest or a class like mage, they can no longer use their hero power to shoot down your minions, or they can't use their single target spells to remove your stuff. Of course, any kind of board clear or mass area effect spell will still work. Keep in mind that this also affects you as well. So if you're a priest, you can't heal your minions anymore. So it is double. It has good and bad, but generally this really supports your board, and it really makes it really difficult for some classes to deal with your minions. It's a little bit understated. We will see it here or there. So just the power level of this card is quite high if you have the supporting board to go along with it. However, it is a little bit understated, so it's not going to be a singular powerhouse card by itself, which lands it in the 10th spot. Moving on to the 9th spot. Ferocious Reader, 2 mana, 1/3. At the end of your turn, draw until you have 3 cards. So it's a one-sided effect. Some of you may remember that there was an old legendary card called Jeeves, and that was a 4 mana 1/4 with the same effect, but it's a mirrored effect. So your opponent has the benefit, or has the benefit as well. So this card, for only 2 mana, it's honestly I can see this being a really big arena impact card, just because it's only 2 mana. It gives up 1 attack over a River Crocodilus, for example, as a standard 2-drop minion. But the benefit of this card is that it protects your draft's ability to continue having cards, filling your hand up with a couple cards. So your deck can't be too light, and it can't run out of resources with this card in your deck. And like I said, this is only a 2 mana investment, so it's relatively small. You won't lose the game outright if you draft this card and you're forced to play it. Like I said, you're only giving up 1 attack stat for a 2 mana card. I think for its investment wise, it's a very strong investment. It allows you to draft in certain ways that you might not be able to, so it does open up certain drafting avenues for you. If your deck is very light, this card can definitely help. So I think as a neutral and as such a small card but such a huge impact, I think this card is definitely, we'll see in a lot of decks coming up. Although it only lands in the 9th spot, because I feel like even though it does help you draw, I think there's enough value cards and large minions that you might not necessarily need the card draw from this card. So you might pick something else over this instead. Moving on to the 8th card. Animated Broomstick, 1 mana 1/1, Rush. Battlecry, give your other minions Rush. So the card is pretty simple. It's a 1/1 minion that can interact with the board right away, so it deals 1 damage, which is fine, which is good. But the battle cry for this card is insanely strong. It affects your entire board, giving them all the ability to interact with the board. it does require other minions, of course, but for 1 mana, this card is an insane. It's an insane benefit for your side. So I could definitely see this picking. You could definitely try picking this card. It gives your 2, 3, 4 minions or one big minion initiative right away, so that you can, hopefully swing the board back in your favor. I think this card has will have a lot of impact. It's similar to the Og Merchant, the Rush Og Merchant. However, the Rush Og Merchant is also 2/1, and it does deal 1 damage, which gives it a little bit of added flexibility, I guess. But this broomstick does deal 1 damage by itself as well. So in tough spots, you might need to just throw this out there to kill off a really trouble minion. But this effect is very powerful, and this card is very cheap, so it's definitely worth the investment. Moving on, so we're going on to the 7th card, Lake Thrasher, 5 mana 4/6 beast. Also damages the minions next to whoever this attacks. So it has cleave damage. We all know how strong cleave damage is, from the old Blazing Longsword to the current Flame Reaper to the old Cave Hydra. And also of course Death Knight Garrosh with his weapon. The issue with cleave damage is you have to have a minion with significant attack, and I think Lake Thrasher with 4 attack on turn 5 deals quite a bit of damage. It comes in at a certain mana slot that makes the 4 attack very, very powerful. If this minion stays on the board, it's definitely going to win you the board, and it needs to be dealt with. So I mean, the impact of this card is going to be massive if you can just stick it on the board. If you go first, this card is going to be huge. And I mean, the 6 health is super relevant. The current expansion has a lot of 6 health minions, which means that existing cards from the previous rotations will have a much harder time dealing with it, because there's not a lot of 6 damage minions, or minions that are able to deal with 6 health minions. So this Thrasher will definitely be a huge problem card if you can get it on the board first. It's going to impact the way your opponents set up their board. They might not even set up the board for you. And it obviously will definitely dominate classes like Paladin and Shaman with small, weak minions. So definitely be on the lookout for this guy. Moving on. Transfer Student. So Transfer Student looks like it's such an insane card. It is an insane card. For 2 mana, you get a whole bunch of different stuff. Its ability is based on the game board. I can go through the abilities here quickly. So Rise of Shadows, Battlecry, add a lackey. Uldum board, you get Reborn, so it's another shot bot. The other Uldum one with the Windmill, you get a Battlecry, add an Uldum Plague spell, so those, Plague of Death, Plague of Madness, Plague of Flames, etc. Dragons of Descent battle board, you get a Discovered Dragon. We know how strong those are from the Dragon Lackeys. And then there's a whole bunch of other ones, like every single ability that the Transfer Student has. I believe there's 10 game boards. Is very good. It makes it a premium card. The reason why it lands in the sixth spot is that it's an epic. We won't see it as often as some of these common cards, so the actual impact in the arena will probably be much less, just because of the fact that we won't see this card very often. But based on just the abilities alone, this card is an easy premium card. But it's, at the end of the day, some of these other cards are actually more impactful, because like a mini bot, while it's very good in the early game, won't win you the game outright unless you have a way to support it. So this card's good, but I think there's other cards that will probably make more impact coming up. Okay, moving on. So we're on to the 5th card. 5th in the top 10. We're at the midway mark. We got a 6 mana 4/9 Onyx Mage Scribe. Spell Burst Add 2 random spells from your class to your hand. It's also a dragon. So this card is going to be one of the staple mid-range minions you'll probably be seeing in most decks. Everyone will be trying to get the spell burst going on this card. It's a huge value card. 9 health is extremely hard to deal with. It's a dragon, so dragon synergy is still relevant. And of course, 2 random spells into your hand from your class will help you power your other spell burst cards, as well as giving you additional value. This card is extremely good. The stats are a little deceiving because they are so enormous, but with 4 attack, it doesn't really trade too well into most 5 or 6 drops. So 5 and 6 drops will probably go 1 for 1 with this most of the time, so it's a little bit deceiving. But the 9 health is relevant. It does make it extremely hard to remove, so the spell burst will go off. It will be better in certain classes, such as mage, obviously. Priest will be quite strong with their strong spells as well. But definitely be mindful of this card. We'll be seeing it a lot, and it's going to make a big impact on Arena because it'll be everywhere. Moving on, so we're going on to the top 4 card now. Plague Protodrake, 8-mana 8/8, death rattle, summon a random 7-cost minion. And it's dragon. So this card is going to be the prototypical 8-mana big minion in this meta. So if you're not lucky enough to get big legendaries, this card is going to be the go-to guy, right? If you don't have tyrants, this guy is going to be it. Tyrant, Pitcroc, and probably Protodrake. So Protodrake reminds me of the old Violet Worm, and we all know back in that meta the Violet Worm was very dominating, very hard to remove. The Death Rattle 1/1s provided a lot of extra damage, extra problems, very hard to remove. This card, it gives you a random 7-drop. I did skim over the 7-drop pool. There are some good cards. Occasionally there is a big low roll, like a 4/4. Bran would be the lowest roll as a 2/4. So you can get potentially a 2/4, or you can get something like Evasive Draconid, a 7/7 taunt. You could get Rap Golem, a 7/5. You could get Vanguard, a 4/10 taunt. So you can get some pretty huge minions from this card. It's extremely slow, but I think every deck in this meta will be able to afford one big guy, and I'm pretty sure people will want this card. It's going to be everywhere. Definitely, like, we're going to need premiums, like premium removal cards like Hex and Polymorph to deal with this. Because it's really hard to ignore an 8/8, but if you go into this minion and a really strong 7-drop comes out, it's going to be impossible to deal with. This minion instantly puts your opponent on the clock because they can't, either they deal with it or they can't, because this card is really hard to deal with just minions and spell removal, unless it's a transform effect. This is going to make a big impact for sure. Alright, we're getting into the top 3. Steward of Scrolls. So Steward of Scrolls, 5-mana 4/4, spell damage +1, battlecry, discover a spell. It's an elemental as well, which is relevant in some classes. Instantly is reminding you of older players of Azure Drake. Azure Drake was battlecry, draw a card, so this card I think is a little bit better because you can discover a spell. Spells are generally way more impactful than random minions from your deck, and it also is an elemental, which is very relevant in certain classes as well, namely Shaman and Mage. So discover a spell. It's going to be varied. It's going to be very strong in certain classes and less strong in other classes. For example, Warrior, Paladin generally have weaker-ish, more spread out spells. They do have good spells, of course, but there's more bad spells. So this card would be a little bit weaker. Another comparable to this card would be Big Ol' Whelp, which is a 5/5 dragon that battlecry, draw a card from your deck. You might want the 5/5 over the 4/4 discover. It really depends on your class, I think. Discover a spell, like if you can synergize with elemental, and if you have some kind of spell synergy, maybe with spell burst, this card is going to be extremely good. Also the spell damage, certain classes can utilize it a little bit better than others. Like I said, paladin less so, warrior less so, mage more so, shaman more so for sure. So definitely be a lookout for this one. Great value card, potential spell burst and spell damage synergy as well. Moving on, so we're heading into the top 2. So this is the second highest impact card, neutral card anyways, that I have. So it's a 4 mana 4/3 fishy flyer. It's one of the ghost cards. It has rush, death row, add a 4/3 with rush to your hand. So for 4 mana you get a 4/3, so you get a 4 damage minion. It has 3 health, so it can trade and live. So it can like kill a 2/3, 2/4, and still live, which is kind of nice. But the benefit of this card is that it does replace itself, which gives you a lot of value. So technically, this card is 2 cards in 1. If this card trades into 2 of your opponent's cards, you already gained 1 card of advantage on your opponent. This card is very, very good, very flexible removal, has a lot of value, has a Murloc tribe, so occasionally you can get some kind of synergies going off with it, mainly in Paladin, maybe in Shaman. There is a neutral Murloc that buffs it as well, so very, very solid removal card. I would probably pick this card over Trollbat Rider, which is the 4 mana 3/3 that deals 3 damage randomly. That card is a little bit more tempo oriented, while this card is also tempo, but it also provides you additional value. This card is going to be everywhere. We'll see it a lot. It's going to make a significant impact for sure. And we're going to head to the number 1 card that I feel will make the most impact on the arena, and it's going to be Smug Senior. 6 mana 5/7 taunt, death rattle, basically replace itself with the ghost card of itself. This card to me reminds me similar to Druid's Emerald Explorer, the 6 mana 4/8 dragon, discover a dragon. Instead of the 4/8 stat distribution, you get a 5/7 stat distribution, which is sometimes more favorable than a 4/8. But both are strong stat distributions. They both have taunt, and in this case, you get a 5/7 taunt as a death rattle, whereas Emerald Explorer lets you discover a dragon, which is probably on average about a 5/7, roughly. About a 5/7, roughly. The only difference is the Emerald Explorer gives you the dragon via Battle Cry, and this via Death Rattle. So as a 5/7, it might not die right away, therefore you might not get something right away. Whereas the Emerald Explorer, you get something right away, regardless if it dies or not. So although cards, I said this card does remind me of the Emerald Explorer, it is not on the same power level as Emerald Explorer, but it is very, very good. And it guarantees you roughly 14 health of taunt, which is quite a bit to go through. It's a huge value card. The minion is properly statted, very decent, not easy to remove 7 health for sure, and especially 2 of them. And it's a common, it's going to be everywhere. It trades in the scribes, it stops sky stalkers. It only really does not do well against the evasive Draconid on turn 7. So that is the card that blocks this card pretty hard, but it is 1 mana more, and you do get an extra guy behind it. So either way, this card is an excellent, excellent card. I expect this card to be in every other deck that you see. It's going to wall you off, it's going to end games by itself, because 14 health without a polymorph or transform effect to remove the second body is just devastating. So I see this card being a huge brick wall in front of most decks. If you can't anticipate, you must anticipate to deal with this card. Otherwise, you're going to be in for a lot of inefficient trading, getting owned by value from this guy. So I hope that But some of these cards are I offered a little bit of pointers and maybe a little bit of insight on some of these impact cards. They're all neutral cards, so they will show up in all classes. I do value the common rarity a bit more because you'll see them way more often. And also, I believe that the meta coming up will be more value oriented. There's a lot of ways to deal with different board states, and there's a lot of value cards to come. So I hope you guys enjoyed a new expansion. Check out my next video, which is going to be the top 10 class cards. We'll go over that right after. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching.